Today we're joined by an extraordinary guest, ultra marathon swimmer, environmental advocate, and arena ambassador athlete, Andy Donaldson. From breaking world records across the world's toughest ocean channels to taking part in marine conservation efforts with Healthy Seas, Andy's journey is one of purpose, resilience, and connection to the sea. He's not only the first person to complete the Ocean's 7 within a single calendar year, he's also using his platform to raise awareness around ocean health and mental well-being. We're thrilled to have him with us today. Andy, I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Crystal. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
Let's start from the beginning. What drew you to the water in the first place?
Well, I think it was to do with my upbringing. I grew up in the west of Scotland. I was born into a very sporty and active family that spent a lot of time outdoors in nature. And we were always down by the coast. And if it wasn't walking, it was in the water swimming. I know that sounds mad in Scotland. You know, it's cold enough in the air, never mind the water. But, we were always doing things. And I have an older sister and an older cousin. They got into the sport of swimming and competitive pool swimming. And, I think there's only so many times that you can be dragged along to competitions before you find yourself following in their footsteps. So that was what drew me to the water. I grew up as a pool swimmer, but discovered ocean swimming and open water swimming when I moved to Australia, which is where I currently live. And from there, really, I fell in love with it and went on to become an ocean swimmer and almost by accident, an ultra marathon swimmer.
So you got into ocean swimming, but you've also then spoken openly about stepping away from swimming at one point. What led you to that decision, and then what pulled you back in?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I had aspirations to race for my country on the international stage. I wanted to go as high as the Olympics and, put blood, sweat, and tears into this dream of mine for many, many years. And ultimately, when it came around the time of trials, I fell short of those goals. I never made the team. Your entire journey was defined by a couple of minutes of racing, which was very hard. And I fell short. And, I think, like many people, they fall short. And, when that happens, you don't really know what to do. I made a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and thought, well, this is a lot of pain, and I don't think I've got another 4 years of that. The Olympic cycles are every 4 years. And I thought, well, I've been putting other areas of life on hold to focus on this for so long. And, society sets these expectations that you should be at certain points in your life at certain times. And I thought, well, I've spent so much of my time focused on swimming. I think it's time to focus on building a life outside of that. And so that's what I did. I focused on my career as an accountant. I grew up in a family where my dad's Scottish, my mum's Asian, and it's almost like fulfilling the Asian prophecy that you become an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer. And, standing up to the stereotype, I was quite good with numbers and I was good at what I did. I focused on that for a number of years. Went through all the professional studies, working these ridiculous hours and coming home and spending another 3 hours reading a book on tax every evening. Like I did that for a good 3 years and was on a great path, but I didn't feel fulfilled doing what I was doing. I felt that to me, it didn't satisfy that purpose aspect that really drives me. I'm someone that loves to help others, and I could through this, but it was only really the people that could afford the accounting services helping the welfare, and I didn't feel like it was something that really got me excited waking up every morning. So life.
You're a mission-driven person.
Yeah, very, very purpose-driven. And, I think maybe growing up and going to places like Indonesia, which is where my mum's from a young age, and seeing inequality, I was always driven to help those that needed it. And I never felt like I was doing that to the extent that I could be. So, life, it wasn't panning out how I kind of thought it was going to. I hadn't reached my goals in swimming. I was going down this path that I wasn't really sure I wanted to be going down. And a few things happened that really brought things to a head, where I lost two close friends to suicide. My manager had been fired from his role, and his workload got put onto me. I went through a relationship breakdown. And so, it was a really difficult time. This is in 2019. And so I thought, well, I need to take a bit of a step back here and reassess. I think when you're in the thick of day-to-day life, it's very hard to do that, to look where you're going and seeing if it's the right path for you. So I took a step out, and, well, to shorten a fairly crazy few years of backpacking and traveling, I ended up leaving my job as an accountant, rediscovering swimming, getting back into the water, and having this passion for the sport reignited, and right in the height of COVID.
So you got back into swimming after how many years of a hiatus?
It was after 4 years of being out of the sport.
Wow. And so you have a 4-year hiatus. Most people wouldn't think that you'd be able to really succeed after such a long time away. And yet you completed the Ocean 7 in a year, which is mind-blowing. Was there a moment during that challenge that stands out as a turning point for you, mentally or emotionally?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll take a bit of a step back and explain what that is. So the Ocean 7 is an ultramarathon swimming challenge that's comprised of the world's 7 toughest and most iconic channel swims. So things like the English Channel, swimming from Ireland to Scotland. There's a couple of swims out in the US, actually, where you are. One between the islands of Hawaii, Molokai, and Oahu, and a whole bunch spread across the globe. Now, I got back into swimming during COVID, and it wasn't my intention to go on and do these swims, but along the way, I reconnected with the sport. I rediscovered a hunger to revisit some unfulfilled goals and dreams, and these had been repurposed or redirected into ultramarathon swimming. And I learned that along the way, maybe I could go on this journey to inspire others. Maybe I could show people that it's never too late to pursue your dreams, and that you can bring purpose into everything that you do. I set out to do the Ocean 7 in the space of a year, something that no one had ever done before. And I wanted to use that as a platform to share all these learnings and messages along the way, to inspire people, but also to raise money for mental health. I'd gone through a period of hardship with my mental well-being when I felt a bit lost in life a couple of years before. And swimming was that anchor that really brought me back on course and got me back on track, feeling like I was doing something that I really loved in life and taking me in a positive direction. So, yeah, there was quite a few moments in the Ocean 7 that were standout turning points. Swimming the English Channel was incredible. It's considered to be the Everest of swimming and quite iconic, especially growing up in the UK. Like, it's something I'd never had dreamed of ever doing. And I think you have so much growth when you take on challenges that you're absolutely terrified to do. And that was one for me. And
was that your first?
That was the first of that Ocean 7 journey that I went on.
Wow.
So
wow, you just dove right in. I mean, literally and figuratively.
Well, there was
dove into the deep end.
Providing perspective, I got back into swimming in 2020, and there was 2 years before I started on this or embarked on this journey. So it's not diving straight into the deep end. I wouldn't recommend anyone to do that. It's like running a marathon after you've just learned to walk. It's a bit of a jump. But I gradually built up to that. But a real standout part was actually that swim in Hawaii, the Molokai Channel. And it's funny enough, all of the swims up to that point had been really successful. You know, I'd broken the British record in the English Channel. I'd swum the second fastest ever time from Ireland to Scotland. I will note here that, you know, these are not in wetsuits. So the water is freezing. You know, in addition to swimming these massive distances, so 20 miles up or 30 kilometers plus, like, you know, you're out there for, you know, 8 or 9, 10 plus hours. It's a long time out in some of the wildest waters in the planet. I broke my first ever world record swimming between the islands of New Zealand. And so coming into this swim in Hawaii, I was coming in feeling really optimistic and confident. And funnily enough, that swim went on to be probably the worst in terms of like an overall result or time. You know, I got absolutely smashed out there in the ocean. You know, we swum in 3-meter high swells with 20 plus knot winds. We got caught out by this unforecasted storm. I was swimming in what felt like a washing machine as we crossed between these two islands through the hours of darkness because it took so long. And so, you know, it's really...
You're swimming through the night.
Just swimming through the night. And, you know, I will say you always have a support boat and a team out there on the water with you. But it's still like you're a pin drop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's terrifying, and you know all too well what's underneath you in the water. Like, there's no cage around. You can't see the bottom. You can hardly see past your fingertips. It's absolutely terrifying at times. And there's me getting thrown around. I felt like I was in a washing machine. The conditions were so rough in that swim. I'd been throwing up non-stop for hours on end. But we found ways to keep on going. You know, as a team, when our backs were against the wall, you know, some of the updates were some of the
So you were swimming with other people?
No. I always use the word we because I might be the only person in the water, but I have my team out there on the boat. And
got it.
You know, I think it's an amazing representation of tackling life's biggest challenges. Like, you're always capable of so much more when you work together. You know, I might be the only person in the water, but we have a skipper on the boat who's in charge of navigation, making sure we take the best line. There's someone out there making sure that I'm staying hydrated and fed, passing me down bottles of energy drinks or whatever it is, like carb gels, all these sorts of things, giving important updates on how we're tracking. You know, there's the wider team as well, your coach, your family, everyone that's supporting you on this journey. So it's a huge operation. And I was so proud of that because when our backs were against the wall and we were making absolutely zero progress at all. This is a 44-kilometer swim, so 30 miles. And at some points, the currents were so bad that we were pretty much swimming on the spot for hours on end, which mentally is just destroying. But we found ways to keep going, and we did that as a team. And we kept coming back to our why. What's the purpose behind this? It's bigger than ourselves. We can adjust as a team, make decisions as a team to try get out of this situation and just keep going. Broke that challenge down to just one arm in front of the other. Just keep doing that. Baby steps. You know, if you're climbing Everest, you never look to the summit. It's just, you know, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And that was a swim that, you know, really showed our character and just how much we wanted it. And after 15 hours and 50 minutes, I made it across to the other side. And, you know, it wasn't pretty. It was, you know, it wasn't a fast result or another record of any sorts. But it was one of the most valuable experiences of my life and probably the most proud I've ever been of a swim of my entire career. So, yeah, that was a huge point in this entire Ocean 7 challenge.
You're swimming with purpose for mental health and for ocean conservation and for the things that matter to you. What changed everything for you? What does purpose look like for you now?
That's a great question. I think for me, the way I see it, purpose encompasses, or the sport of swimming encompasses quite a few things. I think sport is great for your physical health and that active lifestyle, getting moving and up and around. But it has a really positive impact on mental well-being as well. So being out there in nature, immersing yourself in the ocean or outside, being part of community, like sport can bring all of that. So my own purpose is, how do we encourage people to get into sport more, to be part of communities, enjoy the outdoors and nature? We have to have healthy oceans and clean air to participate in sports. So I think there's just a lot of these crossovers that weave beautifully together to create purpose. Like I feel like my purpose is just doing my part, my small part to help all of these. And I feel that through swimming is that vehicle to help me do that. Speaking of Hawaii, I certainly experienced that over there with that, the way that they hold themselves and live their lives, the spirit of aloha, as most people would know it by. The culture is so deeply ingrained with that mindset of love for each other, for nature, compassion, thinking. I think it's like every decision that they make was with 7 generations in the future in mind. I think that I love that. And I think if we all lived our lives with a bit more of that in consideration and with some purpose in mind, I think the world could be a more happier place and a healthier place too.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you were in the water for these countless hours, were you coming across a lot of ocean litter?
Oh, yeah, this can be one of the heartbreaking parts of it all, because when you're in the water as a swimmer, you see it firsthand. You see the changes. You feel the temperatures getting warmer. You can see where there's litter or where things have been destroyed. I've done swims in the Mediterranean, and you can see that there's just been party boats coming in the day before, and so much rubbish has been left behind. People just don't even think. But and yeah, if you swim in the same place, quite often you see how it changes over time. I've been to the Whitsundays earlier this year. I saw the Great Barrier Reef and the bleaching and the coral there and the destruction. And, it's heartbreaking to see it. But I think that's another reason why we have a place in the advocacy ecosystem, because we have front row seats to seeing what's going on. And we have that relationship as an athlete, enjoying those environments and being in there so often. Probably in the ocean more than I'm in my own. Well, that's an exaggeration, but I'm in there a lot. I try to go as fast as possible, but I spend a lot of time in there. So I think it's keep coming back to that message: share what you love and stand up for what's important, and that is important.
And speaking about the ocean health, you joined Healthy Seas and Arena for a cleanup mission recently in Croatia. Can you tell us what this experience was like? What surprised or impacted you the most?
Yeah, so it was a really insightful experience for me. We were in Krnica in Croatia, joined the Healthy Seas team to take ghost fishing nets out from the water and back onto land, where they could be recycled or upcycled, I think is the right word, repurposed into new products essentially and given a second life. I think it was amazing and obviously just very eye-opening to be part of it all. To be out there to see just the amounts of waste in the water. We'd hardly left the bay, and they were picking up abandoned fishing nets that some were spanning about 60 meters long, and there was all this stuff caught up in it, all the small sea animals and crabs and trapped things. It was devastating to see that. I just don't understand how people can be so irresponsible, or what's the right word? Like, they just don't think about these things, the consequences. There was fishing cages, tires, like so much junk at the bottom of the sea, which is, devastating. But I suppose at the same time, it was really encouraging to see people doing something about it. People that are passionate about the health of the sea, that were giving up their spare time to do something about it. Like one of the gentlemen...
Yeah, because so many people are volunteers.
So many people are volunteering their time. Like one of the gentlemen there, I'm pretty sure had just got married a couple of days before and changed these honeymoon plans so that they could come down to Croatia and be part of the dive. Like, I just couldn't believe it.
Amazing.
Like, it's just so good that people are so passionate about this. And I think that was the encouraging takeaway. It can be so overwhelming thinking about the problem, whether it's climate change or ocean health, the global mental health struggle, like all these different things. But when you see other people doing something about it, it's encouraging. And I think if we each can just do our small part, the sum of that can make such a huge difference, especially over time. And that's one of the key takeaways for me from all of this, that we can make a difference. Together we are stronger. We have a bigger voice as well. We can get the word out there and show people that want to do something that you're not alone and you can. There is a way. All it takes is just taking that first step and volunteering. And trust me, it'll be worth it.
That's great. Yeah. I hope everybody walks away from this conversation feeling the inspiration and empowered by what you said. Many people see endurance athletes as superhuman, but your story shows how vulnerability and strength coexist. How do you train or protect your mental health during extreme challenges?
It's a really interesting one. And I think with endurance sport, there's this beautiful parallel to, I think, a lot of life's biggest challenges, where it's not a sprint. It's the problem doesn't fix itself like that. It's one that you have to spend time addressing. And the physical aspect of it all is just one part. You have to be fit to swim these ultramarathon distances and go for 8 or 9 or 10 plus hours nonstop. But the mental side of it, that's perhaps the toughest part, because the body will keep going. The mind will always give up before the body. Mm-hmm. And so, there's this statistic that says, I think, marathon swimming is 20% physical, 80% mental. It's when things are going fine, great. But it's, when you start getting tired, it's when it's dark outside, when you can't see what's at the bottom of the ocean, when you are feeling sick. Like, these are the moments where you start to crack. And so I think there's two ways you can look at it. One of the big buzzwords at the moment is resilience. Can you be resilient? But I also think being robust is important too. So resilience is being adaptable and responding to challenge in the moment. So, if you encounter something out there in the water, do you have the tools necessary at your disposal to handle it? So, if your boat breaks down midway through a swim, something that's happened to me, are you resilient in the moment to stay calm, not get overstressed, burn all this energy, and, boom, swims over, and that can be quite tough. But on the other hand, being robust is all about preparation in the lead up to a challenge. Can you be ready for the challenges so that if you encounter them, you know what to do? And so that requires identifying what could go wrong, or the difficulties or the challenges beforehand, and working backwards. So we talked about the physical aspect. Right? If I'm swimming 30 kilometers straight, I better get fit. Or if I'm swimming in water that is like an ice bath and I'm going to be in that for 8 hours, I better get used to swimming in the cold. Or, if I'm swimming from Ireland to Scotland and the weather's terrible, I'd better get comfortable swimming in the rough conditions, in the chop and the swell. And so you practice all of that day to day in the lead up to your swim, so that circle of comfort, if you think of like your comfort zone, if you think of it as a circle, then every day you're expanding it so that you're ready for race day and when you've got to perform. And so if you experience something that's outside of your comfort zone, hopefully it's a lot bigger and it's not as much of a gap that takes you wildly outside and puts you, way outside of the comfort zone. You're robust, you're ready for the challenges ahead, and it doesn't require you to be as resilient, because you can be the toughest person in the world, but if you haven't done any cold water training and you're trying to swim from Ireland to Scotland, good luck. You're not going to be able to do it. So, I think the mental aspect it might seem superhuman to people from the outside, but I think when you break it down and work backwards, anyone's capable of doing this.
And so it's this preparation, really, is kind of that key.
I feel so. And, I am an accountant after all. We love doing all this kind of risk analysis stuff and trying to come up with these solutions and paths. But I think a big part of resilience is having this defined toolbox for what do you do when you're in trouble. And for swimming, I had all of my backup plans and whatnot. But I think in day-to-day life, if you're talking about mental health, there's an opportunity to talk about a toolbox there. What do you do when you're stressed? For me, it might be go outside, go for a nice long walk. It might be go and hang out with my friends or my family and just completely decompress. It might be go for a swim, get active, get the endorphins from sport. Whatever it is, having that toolbox and all these levers you can pull, it means that you can manage that well-being so that you never go up to the edge and fall over. You go up to the edge, you scream into the void, but find a way to come back down and keep on going. And for me, I feel that that's a better way for sustainability in the long run for whatever you do.
And speaking of mental health, you've also created a mental health sea swimming group called Swim Clan. What have you learned from the people you've coached? What have they taught you?
I think one of the big lessons from the community was everyone's on their own journey, and we can either choose to compare and compete or celebrate and collaborate. Compare and compete, that would be looking at what someone else is doing and maybe keeping up with the Joneses. They're doing this, I ought to do this, and I need to be ahead of them, or whatever it is. We all get caught up in it. But I think this idea of celebrate and collaborate, we can all be part of each other's journeys. We can lift each other up. We can support them to achieve their goals. And, I think for me, I actually find that far more rewarding and fulfilling than pursuing my own goals. My older sister, Hannah, she wanted to swim one of the big local races here in Perth, Western Australia, which is called the Rottnest Channel Swim. And it's maybe around 14 miles long or 20 kilometers long. And supporting her through that journey and getting her almost to the finish line, it sadly got cancelled. The weather was really bad, one of the hazards of our sport. But, getting her past the halfway mark before they pulled the pin, that was almost more enjoyable and fulfilling than the events that I've taken on myself. And so I think whether it's your own journey or whether it's helping someone else, everyone's journeys are important. Everyone's journeys are their own. Comparison is the thief of joy. something that is hard to do in today's world when you've always got social media pressing all these different things on you. But if you can just focus on what you're doing or be happy for others, celebrate others, I can tell you it's going to be a far more enjoyable life, and it's more sustainable in terms of fulfillment, happiness, and growth.
You're so wise.
I don't feel it, but
what would you say to young athletes or environmental activists who are passionate about making a difference, but feel overwhelmed or burnt out?
What I would say to people that want to get into advocacy that might be afraid to or don't really know where to start is to reach out to someone that's already doing it. Speak to, if you have a hero that's doing something in the field that you're very passionate about, reach out to them. Like, everyone's just human. And if you connect on this common passion, obviously don't come in too like guns blazing and demanding, but, just seek advice. I'd say more often than not, people are happy to provide that and want to support people on their path, especially when there's a just cause behind it all too. And then, I think one that's really helped me in recent years is write down your values. What is important to you? Whether that is, your family, helping others, money, or the environment, I don't know. And rank them, because I think a big fear for people is upsetting others or the public image, what people think of me. They might be afraid to speak out or call out something that is wrong in fear of backlash or opinions of others. And I think if you have these values written out and they're ordered in what's most important, then that can guide your decisions moving forward. If you really care about the environment or making a difference, does it matter if a couple of people don't like that? Does the opinions of others rank above this thing that you say that you're really passionate about or not? And I think it helps when you've got it down on paper, because you can look at it, you can make those hard decisions, but feel a lot more comfortable doing that, and that you're doing the right thing and staying true to who you are.
You've achieved something that may never be repeated. So what now? Do you already have a next challenge or cause in mind?
I think for me, well, firstly, I don't have anything major to talk about right now.
You need a break. You deserve a break.
I think for me, I'm really passionate about mental well-being, mental health, ocean health, and sustainability, and advancing the sport of swimming, whether that's through water safety or encouraging more people into the sport, enjoying them. Can they get into it, and can they do it safely and connect with the community? And I say that because I feel that these are all interconnected. Swimming's related to all of them. And so, I want to do my part to move the needle in all of these, do what I can to leave the world in a better place than when I entered it. And for me, I have many roles. I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a business owner, I'm also a swimmer. And I feel like you can move the needle in all of those capacities, just in different ways. As a swimmer, I can do challenges and bring attention to these causes through what I do. I think sport's one of these amazing mediums that can attract attention, which in today's world is so important when you've got all these eccentric billionaires taking up all of the oxygen in the room and capturing all the media headlines. Like, I feel like sport doing something amazing that captures the imagination of people. I don't have any challenges yet. There are a few in the works, but if people have suggestions or ideas, I'm open-minded. If we need more marine protected areas in the world, point somewhere on a map. If someone listening wants to help me finance it because I'm a little bit broke, then great. I'll go and
Yeah.
swim it. I think that's the beautiful thing. And that would attract attention to that part of the world and that goal. I feel that athletes have this ability to resonate with everyday people. They haven't got into that position because of privilege or because of wealth or money. They've had to work hard for it. They're usually very down to earth, everyday people that can speak in a language that people understand and through sport share these powerful messages. So I hope that there's more of it in the future. I certainly want to keep in this space. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
If you could inspire one kind of change in sport, in society, or in ocean protection, what would it be?
Okay, I'll refer back to the three things I'm very passionate about. So swimming. I would love to get more people into the sport safely and allow them to develop their skills to pursue their dreams, whatever that is. And I'm working on a little bit of a project that I think can get that knowledge and education to help people to do that out there and more accessible. So, maybe watch this space.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of mental health, okay. I feel like, getting people into sport and into the community, that's going to help. I would love to see education around mental health, emotional intelligence incorporated into schools around the world. I think it's an issue that is widespread. It can happen to anyone. Yeah. There's always going to be challenges in life. And I feel like we need to equip people with the tools to tackle them. Again, thinking of that Hawaiian principle of 7 generations into the future. If we make these reforms now, it might be a little bit late for me and you, but for future generations, then they might be more prepared or, to use that word earlier, robust for the road ahead. And then when it comes to the ocean, I think as a swimmer, we've talked briefly about the position that athletes can have in advocacy. It's an issue that is going to take a lot of people working together on for a long period of time. And I would love to put together a team of some of the world's best water athletes and ultramarathon swimmers, where we're advocating for ocean health and doing challenges, whether together or whether on our own, to move the needle on the cause. Call it an Avengers of swimming or a Manchester United of swimming, nice. Where you have the infrastructure to support these athletes in order to do these challenges and to work with organizations like Healthy Seas to protect what they love, but do it in a sustainable way where they're supported to do these challenges. Not everything is just put on them where they're having to be the swimmer, the marketer, the spokesperson, the fundraiser, let them focus on what they're good at and allow this to be something that can be sustainable into the future, because I can only swim for a certain number of years doing these kinds of challenges. But if there's a team that's set up and people can step in and step out and everyone gets their chance to be part and represent at some point, taking the best swimmers of a generation, every single generation, for years and years to come. I think that could be really interesting and could inspire this different type of advocacy, which is through collective action in sport.
Healthy Seas is definitely here for that idea.
the Avengers, the Healthy Seas Avengers.
Love it. I love it.
I think it could be really cool. Maybe if Arena are listening.
Yes, Arena, I think this is a good idea. Perhaps we can put this together. Andy will lead the charges.
I'm here. They've got my number.
Andy, thank you for your time, your honesty, and your unstoppable energy. Your journey reminds us that strength isn't just physical, it's emotional and relational and deeply tied to the causes we believe in. We'll be cheering you on wherever the tide takes you next. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Seas podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow and share it with others who care about the ocean. Want to dive deeper? Subscribe to our newsletter at healthyseas.org/newsletter for behind-the-scenes stories, upcoming projects, and partner updates from around the world. There are many ways to be part of the mission. Donate, partner, spread the word, or simply stay connected. Explore how at healthyseas.org/take-action. Together, we can turn marine waste into waves of change.